evening. And this evening, it's playoffs that we talking about. It's the NBA playoffs that's going on. So Mossberg chose to bring you part one of NBA iconic playoff performances. I think we're gonna do a couple of different series with this because there's so many different icon performances out there. But I'm not gonna hold it. I'm gonna bring it from Columbus and I'm gonna take it all the way to South Bend and I'm gonna introduce my main man from Indiana, Bend and Air, post game. How's it going this evening? Post game sports. How you doing this evening, sir?
Man, I feel wonderful, Moss. It's always a great show when we get together on Wednesdays for the people. I appreciate you having me as always, brother. And I'm excited to get into these NBA playoff performances with you.
Yes, sir, man. And I appreciate you joining as we've been going back and forth with each other for the last, I don't know, it seemed like it's been a couple months, with the host of the show. And, bringing these NBA playoff performances is so many out there when you speak of iconic NBA playoff performances and things like that. You think of course, MJ, you think of LeBron, you think of, Steph Curry, players like that. But we're going to take it back a little bit. I was thinking I'm going to start it off this week with Charles Barkley. I'm going to take it way back post to 1993 when Charles Barkley was with when he played against the Seattle Supersonics when he was with the Phoenix Suns. He had a monster game, 43 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, a triple double. And I'm going to say this was the long way when you get 43 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, and he shot perfect from the free throw line and shooting 16 for 22 from the field. When you think about Charles Barkley and we speaking on NBA playoff iconic performances, a player that didn't get a championship, what's your thoughts on this performance? And I'm sure you could possibly remember this game. Sir Chuck, as they called him, so many other different names, but Charles Barkley with a dominant performance versus Seattle, and that was in a great game he displayed. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's a great game for you to pick, man. Charles Barkley is one of those guys who I think the younger generation don't know as much as they should know about him being an undersized power forward, 6'4", tough as nails, athletic as heck, coming from Auburn, coming from that South. Just amazing what he was able to do at that size. So that's a heck of a performance, bro.
Definitely, man. And for me, man, when you think of Charles Barkley, you know, he was battling so many people. And when I watched that game, it was like for him to be 93. When Chuck came in, he was really, some people looked at his size like he was bigger than everybody else. But in 93, Chuck seemed like he was a little smaller. But he dropped the 43, 15, 10, triple dub in a playoff game against the Seattle Supersonics. Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, Detlef Schrempf, a heck of a team he played against in that outing. And what we doing this week is not only thinking about what MossBurgh's playoff performances are, we passing it the post, and we appreciate you with your iconic performance thoughts as well, and all the things you do when you tune in and you here with me on this show. What was one of the performances that you had to bring to the people?
Yeah, of course, bro. One of my favorite childhood memories of the NBA has to be Reggie Miller. Is in Miller time, bro. Game 1, 1995, Eastern Conference semifinals, 8 points in 8.9 seconds to secure the victory against the New York Knickerbockers. Reggie
Ooh,
Miller. Yes, that's one of my favorite performances, one of the best playoff performances I saw. Definitely had me going crazy as a child watching that moment.
I like the fact of you bringing that up. That the crazy thing is, when we talk about the iconics, and you mentioned Reggie and the Knicks, you think of Spike versus Reggie. It was so many performances. The choke, as we see Halliburton do it. You've seen that come back this, last season, and it makes me think of those things, and I think that's probably one of the top, most iconic performances. You're talking about one of the greatest shooters in NBA history, Reggie Miller. I mean, you could go on and on. I have a buddy of mine named James Hazelwood. We called him Reggie Miller, and he could shoot that ball like no other, man. Still to this day, man, I can't wait to see him. But definitely it's something special to see what he did against those New York Knicks, and he had his way.
And
And
my bad, bro. I didn't mean to
you
cut you
good,
off.
you good, you good.
Uh, one of the worst things about Reggie Miller's career is that he never actually got a championship.
Somebody just got shot. They laying in the street down there. They got it all roped off and blocked off.
Okay.
From Cleveland all the way to
Yeah, one of the best performances in playoff history, I think. And one of the worst things about Reggie Miller's career is that he never won an NBA championship. I think probably his best chance to win a championship was the Malice in the Palace, that team that year where everybody got suspended. Sadly, I think that would have been his best chance to win the NBA championship.
I totally agree, man. And when you speak about that, I was just watching the other day, man. Shout out to Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, all the smoke. What they do with their podcast, and they, give some in-depth talks, and they really apologized to Reggie Miller. They were in tears speaking about that because they felt that they owed so much to him, and felt that that was his opportunity, to bring that championship to him. And I agree with you, man. That was, man, you think of so many things when you think of Indiana. You think of the Malice in the Palace, like you said, not to mention that, and just greatness, and another player that was a legend himself. A lot of people put this man in a GOAT post. I'm starting to think that he's really a man that's deserving of GOAT status. And when you talk about legend, it's only one legend that you could really think about, Larry Legend. I really did a lot of research because I've been asking a lot of people about Larry Bird, where he, where's his status when it comes to this GOAT chapter, when it comes to the top five, top four, should it be stretched out a little longer? I went in and I looked at Larry Legend. He put on a performance post game back in 1984 NBA Finals. 34 points, 17 rebounds. I watched this game today twice. I watched highlights for at least 30 minutes. And when you speak on Larry Legend, you're speaking of a pure shooter, a great defender, which some mistake him for, very physical as well. And for me, seeing Larry Legend put up 34 against Magic Johnson, that Los Angeles Laker team, you think about Larry, you think about Magic, and you think about back when they played against each other in in college, and then to bring it to the pro level, and for Larry Legend to be able to drop a 34-17 rebound game, to me, I think that was special. I think when you talk about iconic, it's a performance, it's a game that you could go watch over and over and learn so much from that game within itself. What's your thoughts on just Larry Legend within itself as well?
Yeah, I mean, if he's not the greatest small forward, definitely top two or three. Uh, a lot of people got him number one. Some people got him two behind LeBron James. I'm cool with that. Either way it go. I like Larry, man. His clutch. That dude was clutch. He was fearless, man. And you talk about one of the greatest 3-point shooters of all time, a great rebounder in his own right, and a guy who was tough as nails. A guy alone with Magic Johnson who helped save the NBA back in that time. So shout out to Larry Legend, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree. And we gonna pass the mic. We not rapping, but we cooking up, as MossBurgh say here on WTP Sports Dudes. And I'm gonna pass it on over to Post because I know he got something cooking up that he want to talk about on another iconic NBA playoff performance.
Yeah, we can't talk about great NBA playoff performances without talking about the legend. Rest in peace, Kobe Bean Bryant. And I
Yes,
know a
sir.
lot of the younger people probably aren't familiar with this performance. But I'm going to take y'all back to May 13th, 2001. Kobe Bryant against the Sacramento Kings. 48 points, 16 rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds.
Yes, sir.
9 offensive rebounds. This your two guard. To complete the sweep against the Kings with Shaq fouling out. That game, right? I remember watching that game as a younger, a preteen or teenager. Maybe I was 12 or 13 at the time, but that was one of the greatest single game performances I've seen from a player. Kobe Bryant back in 2001 dropping 48 and 16 boards with the Diesel falling out to complete the sweep against the Sacramento Kings. That's the year they only lost one game in the playoff run against the Philadelphia 76ers. That game, if somebody in the chat is unfamiliar with that game, you need to go check it out. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. But
Yeah.
that performance right there made me realize, like, yo, Kobe is that dude.
Definitely. And when you speak of that performance, it's something because our mindset be in the same atmosphere because I have that same game wrote down. And when you talking about being rest in peace to the great, we look at him as one of those guys who Mount Rushmore, you got MJ, you got Bean, you got Brian. It's so many discussions out there. But when your name jumps on this list twice, when we talking iconic performances, that in itself says something. But to double back with that performance, 2002, he came right back in a Western Conference Finals post and dropped another 30. Wasn't 40 this time, but he gave them 30 with 10 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in a decisive game 7. And if they didn't realize in 01 what Kobe was coming with, he came back in 02. This was during that era where they was on that three-peat. Him and Shaq Fu. That was a name you heard at that time. So, for me, seeing what Kobe was doing, I think he began to elevate his game. 41 year, 30 the next year, but a collective as well as his teammates being more involved in that game and it being so much more. Game 7, decisive, you on the road. What more can you ask for in a young Kobe, Being rest in peace, man. I just, I got him you see that 24, man. That's Bean, man. That's just the legend he was and still is across the basketball world. So, that was mine. Coming back with yours, I think it was only right to go ahead and double back and mention that 2002 because you talk about 2 years where Kobe really, people thought he took too many shots, but I think he was just becoming himself, understanding the game more, having that mentality that it's on my shoulders, to get this win, to get us over the hump, in which he did. And we see what it done for the organization, his legacy, and we still talking about it here today as we speak. And I'm gonna come right back to you and I'm gonna bring it back to you as we talk. And any thoughts on, those performances as we, respect and being respectively that you could think about and what he brought during his playoff era, I would say.
Yeah, I watched all those games live as a young a preteen or teenager. One of the two. I was a diehard, still is a diehard Lakers fan, but back then I could not miss a game. Excuse me. I could not miss a game back then. You talk about Shaq and Kobe, the two best players in the league at the time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or as my uncle would say back then, Kobe Bryant was the best player in the league. Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant player in the league. So when you put those two on the same team, it's not shocking that they got the results they got. And watching Kobe evolve and grow, and it's funny when people used to say back then, "Oh, he shoot too much." My goodness, he a shooting guard.
Yeah.
That's what he's supposed to do.
That's what he's supposed to do. Put up them shots, Post. I agree. Definitely.
But yeah, man, it was just a pleasure watching that team, man. That's when basketball was really basketball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any other performance that you had that you want to talk about? I know we got quite a few. We just gonna go back and forth, converse a little bit, because I think we just getting started for the buildup of some of the performances that we got in the bag for the people.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the folks back to 1987, and this is one of my favorite players of all time. Hakeem Olajuwon, 1987 Western Conference semifinals against the Seattle Supersonics. Check these numbers out, Moss. 49 points, 25 rebounds, and 6 blocks. See, they be talking about Jokic like so those numbers, some of those numbers not new to some of us, bro.
Yeah.
Hakeem Olajuwon was really him. And I wish I had a time machine or something to see him play in this era, because I know he'd be putting up crazy stats, but to put up those, bro, 49 and 25.
That's insane, bro.
6 blocks. Like, Hakeem was that dude, bro. They don't know about Hakeem the Dream, man.
That's insane. And when you speak of you said 42 points, 25 rebounds, and then you drop 7 blocks on there, folks.
49,
my bad,
and 25 rebounds.
That's crazy, because when you think about what we see today, this was with defense being played, in a time where you had Sampson in the game, you had Moses Malone in the game, you had Dr. J, who was playing the 5 position in the game, Kareem, you had so many greats, Daryl Dawkins playing in these times. And, to be able to do these type of things is something special. I think in today's game, Olajuwon might be a walking 40 to 50, bro. Like, and you talking about a player that elevated his game when the playoffs came. Somebody that just go out and you look at the scoreboard like you do with Tim Duncan. You got a double-double in the third quarter, and you still got a whole fourth quarter left. So it's definitely something special, to be able to speak on Olajuwon. And for those tuning in, if you haven't, done some research, or if you have, definitely go check this game out. Watch the full game. See what we talking about, what we ooh and ahhing about. Because if you put Hakeem Olajuwon at this time, not even in his prime, in the NBA now, he would still get 40 points or 50 points on average. I just think he's really, and I know he's that good. I appreciate.
You got to think about it. He would have so much more room to operate. The game is so much more spread out than what it used to be back in the day. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine the type of points he would score. Hakeem could score. He could do it all, but he could really score. It was a different